The escalating Iran-Israel conflict puts the United States in a precarious position, facing intense pressure to intervene even as it seeks to avoid another costly entanglement in West Asia. At the heart of this dilemma is the question, will America be drawn into the Iran-Israel war? US President Donald Trump convened a high-level National Security Council meeting on Tuesday that lasted for over an hour. Hours before the meeting, Trump said that the US has complete control of the skies over Iran. He called for unconditional surrender from Iran and said he knows exactly where Iran's Supreme Leader Khamenei is hiding, but will not take him down. In a post on Truth Social, Trump said, I'm quoting him here, Iran had good sky trackers and other defensive equipment, and plenty of it, but it doesn't compare to American-made, conceived and manufactured stuff. Nobody does it better than good old USA. He hailed the use of US-made weaponry, although without explicitly mentioning Israel. Trump's remark comes hours after he said that he wants to end the Israel-Iran war and not go for ceasefire. The US Embassy in Israel struck an Iranian missile on Monday. The first strike of an American diplomatic facility in this conflict points towards an escalation. Raises concerns. Though at least so far the US has spoken of restraint, there's also no denying that powerful forces are pushing America closer to deeper involvement. First, Israel's call. Prime Minister Netanyahu has formally requested US military support to target Iran's deeply buried Fordo uranium enrichment site. Israeli officials confirmed they lack the capability to destroy this facility independently. Secondly, there's mounting domestic political pressure on President Trump from within his own party. Former Vice President Mike Pence stated that if Israel needs US help to destroy Iran's nuclear program, the US should be prepared to do it, calling Israel its most cherished ally. Republican senators and hawks in Washington have urged Trump to go all in, including providing bombs or flying with Israel. And not to be missed, the direct attacks on US interests, such as the attack on the embassy in Tel Aviv. Looking forward, Tehran could also attack international shipping in the Gulf or Red Sea, triggering a global energy crisis and potentially forcing US intervention. But the US entering the conflict carries immense dangers. Iran has vowed retaliation against any country aiding Israel. About 40,000 US troops in West Asia with their bases, embassies and naval vessels face immediate missile attacks from Iran or its proxies. If Iran feels its regime is existentially threatened, it might accelerate its nuclear program to develop a weapon, leading to an even more dangerous security landscape and an economic fallout. Of course, that would have global repercussions. The Strait of Hormuz, a crucial choke point for about 20% of the world's oil, could become a war zone, causing energy prices to spike and destabilizing global markets. Tensions simmer and Israel presses forward, and the risk of the regional war spiraling out of control with potential US involvement remains dangerously real. This crisis could very well define President Trump's second term. For more on this, we're now joined by Ruthie Bloom, former advisor at the Office of Prime Minister Netanyahu, author and award-winning columnist. Thank you so much for joining us, Ms. Bloom. Ms. Bloom, I remember we spoke on the very first day that Operation Rising Lion was launched as well. I want to ask you how your assessment, if at all, it's changed in the days that followed.
If anything, I've grown more optimistic. I've been listening to your broadcast and I hear all the gloom and doom forecasts, but actually I believe that this war, if Israel succeeds at victory in it, and that is destroying Iran's nuclear facilities and intercontinental ballistic missiles, and its ability to fire on Israel and ability to fund and train terrorists all over the globe, will lead to peace, not an escalation of war, as we saw in President Trump's first term when he brokered the Abraham Accords, that were a direct result of Prime Minister Netanyahu's opposition to the nuclear deal that Obama signed in 2015.
Right, Ms. Bloom, I just want to expand, just seeking more clarity here. If you could just expand on that further, because right now, the specter of war, it does appear to point towards a lot of gloom and doom, and I understand perhaps where you're coming from, but if you could just expand on that, because right now we're seeing a period of intense volatility. And if the United States were to get involved, the stakes only get higher. When it comes to the people of Iran, and we were speaking to some of the experts yesterday as well, that with the situation already being so tense in West Asia, ever since the war between Israel and Gaza, how do you see things going forward?
Okay, so first of all, the war between Israel and Gaza, in other words, Hamas in Gaza, Hamas is an Iranian proxy, as are the Houthis in Yemen and militias in Iraq and Hezbollah in Lebanon. How I see this improving is the gloom and doom is immediate, right? War is terrible and people get killed, although I have to say the casualties have been very minimal since Israel launched this operation, mainly targeting military officials, though Iran has been targeting Israeli civilians. Even Israeli casualties have been low. And what I mean is, the forecast is when you rid the world of this pernicious actor and its terrorist tentacles all over the globe, you have a chance for flourishing economies, including in Iran. That's what I meant about a forecast that's optimistic. As we saw, and what I meant by the Abraham Accords, why they were the direct result of Netanyahu's opposition to the Iran deal, was that when he spoke to the joint session of Congress in 2015 and appealed to the Americans not to sign that deal, in the end they did. But after his speech, the representatives of the Gulf states came to him and they said, wow, you stood up to the President of the United States about Iran, and Iran is our worst enemy. And that began the path to the Abraham Accords, the peace accords that caused a lot of flourishing economics between Israel and the Gulf, tourism exchanges, agriculture, medical exchanges. It was beautiful. And then Saudi Arabia was on the verge of joining. And that's when Hamas launched its October 7th massacre to prevent peace, you see. So I believe that this kind of war is a war to end this pernicious force in the world, not to perpetuate it.
All right, and just if I could just bring in some other things that we've been discussing as well. Now, of course, we've been speaking to other experts as well. Some say that they should have stayed on the path of diplomacy, and they should have never strayed from that. And even though the United States and Iran were at an impasse essentially when it came to its nuclear program, there were discussions that were ongoing, and in fact the two sides seemed to have some sort of optimism with regards to that. On the other hand, we also had someone who said, why didn't this happen sooner? Because we've known of Iran's nuclear program for a while now. That being said, if the United States now does get involved, what is your assessment? Because we've also been hearing, now Trump is saying that he wants unconditional surrender. We have also heard that Netanyahu has said that an assassination of Khamenei would not escalate this conflict, but in fact end it. Do you think these comments at this point in time are going to be helpful?
Yes, I do. I think it's very important to send the Ayatollahs and Khamenei in particular, to send them a clear message. And it doesn't mean that Israel is going to assassinate him. Maybe Israel will, I don't know. It's important that he realize. Now, when Trump said unconditional surrender, you see, I think that's what he meant by his negotiations that led up to this, okay? He was saying, yes, let's negotiate. You destroy your facilities, or someone else is going to have to do it for you. You capitulate, or we're going to force you. That's what those negotiations were, and that's why Iran did not agree to them, and Trump was losing patience. Having said that, when President Trump asked Netanyahu not to attack Iran while the negotiations were ongoing, Netanyahu agreed and did not launch an attack. But then the International Atomic Energy Agency came out with a report that Iran has enough enriched uranium to produce 9 nuclear bombs. Time was running out, and though America has its own interests and Israel respects those, Israel also has its own interests. And Iran has vowed to wipe Israel off the map for year in and year out. Meanwhile, Iran has said the same thing about the United States, that it's the great Satan and Israel is the small Satan. So what I think happened here is that President Trump said to Netanyahu, okay, you do what you have to do. I'm not joining you. But then in the coming days, he began to see that there may be no choice. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that he will participate in any of these strikes in Iran. It could mean that he'll provide Israel with the bunker buster, the 30,000-pound bunker busters that are required to hit Fordo, and the B-2 bombers that are the only ones that can carry those heavy, heavy bombs. So we don't know yet. By the time you and I finish this broadcast, for all we know, there are going to be American planes in the air. We don't know. Every minute right now, as you see, something changes, and President Trump posts something new on Truth Social.